this is, again, kind of an effort. The effort we always undertake is to simplify things enough so that it's useful, so that we can actually see a thing for what it is and take action on it. And with that simplification, obviously there's things that get missed. And this is kind of one of those cases where if you look at well-being or wellness or health, and you look out into the world, there's a whole bunch of stuff out there. There's a lot of noise out there about self-care and wellness and all of those things. And what well-being are we talking about? We've narrowed it down to 4. I'm going to walk through those 4 dimensions right now to just to get that conversation started. And then we're actually going to do a little bit of an assessment as well. But let's start with kind of the most basic type of well-being. And it's, of course, our physical well-being, right? It's how are we actually doing as people with bodies and with minds, and all that goes into maintaining those things. As someone who's probably gained a few pounds over the pandemic, I know my physical well-being, it's one of those that I'm like, probably time for me to take that a bit more seriously. But, our rest and our nutrition and our exercise and our sleep and all of those things go into physical well-being. I was actually just thinking, I've got 3 small kids, and, when they're hungry or when they're tired, if you have kids, that impacts their experiences and how they show up. And same for us, that we get the hangries too. And so physical well-being is a real thing. And something for us to attune to and to look at. How do we support that type of physical well-being? Pablo, your examples of sleeping on your cell phone, right? How conducive is that to like an actual night's sleep? And what's the impact the next day when you show up to that team and you haven't slept all night, right? Or you've been woken up at 3 a.m. by your boss, right? So that physical well-being is something that we can actually impact as leaders and as managers. Psychological well-being, what goes on upstairs between the ears when it comes to levels of distress, when it comes to the big 3, anxiety, depression, and addiction. That psychological experience that we're having. How healthy are we there? How much well-being do we have in our psychological health? We added social health, and so this is relational well-being. What are the qualities of the social connection that we have within the organization and within our own lives? Pablo, I'm actually, as I reflect through your story, I'm seeing probably examples of tension or conflict for you in all of these different domains of well-being. The social, like what's that relationship actually like with your boss and with your team? What's the power dynamic there? And so this is where we start to see the connection to leadership and to power. And the spiritual domain, and kind of your definition of spirituality will vary. Everybody has their own relationship with spirituality. And I tend to approach it from a place of purpose and meaning. Right? How connected am I to something bigger than the day-to-day tasks that I'm engaged with, or this one experience that I'm having? How do we make meaning of the world? And does that meaning make sense to us? And what gets us up and out of bed in the morning to have an impact in the world? So these 4 dimensions are, we could take any one of them probably and slice it further, right? But as a starting point, this is a great place to start a conversation and to start looking at your team and what are we doing in each of these domains to foster a sense of well-being or to foster actual well-being. I wanted to take a few minutes just to break down some of the differences between the language. And again, it gets to this place sometimes with this particular topic where you say health and you define it as wellness, and then you talk about wellness and you define it as health. And so we just get this kind of like, what actually is this thing that we're talking about? But this is from the Oxford Dictionary, health being the state of being free from illness or injury. And that doesn't really do it for me. Like the absence of disease doesn't really resonate with me as being, I can't consider myself healthy just because I'm not sick. That doesn't quite cover it. Wellness, again, that state of being in good health. What exactly does that mean? And then well-being is defined as the state of being healthy, comfortable, or happy. So none of those really satisfied our need to get a good solid definition to stand on. As you hang out with the Ally Co, you'll know that we love definitions. We love to understand and get to a place of really mutual understanding. Shared language is really important in how we approach these types of things. So we do spend a little bit of time defining that with the people we work with. And so here's a first crack or a first go at a definition. I'd love to get feedback on this one, but I'll let you read it for a sec. So there's a couple of key words in this definition or in this framing of well-being. Obviously, alignment is one. And so I know that when I'm out of alignment, when I have expectations of something, myself or other people, and then I have experience that's different than that gap between my expectations and my experience starts to create a tension. Right. And I think that when I think of when I'm not doing well in one of those 4 dimensions, it's because there's some underlying tension there between what I want and what I'm receiving or what I'm actually doing about it. So an incongruence or a misalignment. So alignment between those 2 becomes important. And then when it comes to these 4 dimensions, this idea of physical, psychological, social, and spiritual, we take a very needs-based perspective. right? And we've got a little model, needs, values, and goals. But in this particular case, we're looking at what needs, like what physical needs do you actually have? And if they go unmet, what impact does that have on your well-being? Right? If you have social needs and they go unmet, like what is the impact on our well-being? And so really kind of taking a perspective of, a needs-based approach to understanding this has been really helpful for us, because I know I can beat myself up sometimes about my lack of well-being or certain habits that don't actually contribute that well to my well-being. Staying up too late to watch Netflix, right, causes that, like, it disturbs the physical, but it's actually meeting some sort of social need, or it's meeting a chance to connect with my wife and hang out after the kids go to bed. And so, our needs are sometimes in competition with each other. And so that's something, as we go through this, to start to consider, what need is unmet and what needs might be being met and might be compromising something else, and really looking for a good alignment in that system.